During NCO7, I was part of the Balika programming team, the core programming team.
I was responsible for the registration and check-in team.
So I helped design, execute, and research programs for the national conventions.
Yeah, during NCO7, I was working on the Kishore convention, in particular on programming.
My name is Chirag Patel. I'm from Medicine, New Jersey. One of the ways that BAPS engaged youth and kept them connected to their cultural and spiritual roots was to organize large-scale conventions. And those conventions coincided with the visits of our gurus, Pramukh Sai Maharaj and Mahan Sai Maharaj.
Youth have a lot of energy in those forming years of their life. And if that energy is channeled in the right direction with a purpose and a goal, then, just as we take an example, wind has a lot of energy, water has a lot of energy. But when you channel it through the right turbines, it provides electricity that lightens thousands of homes. Similarly, when this youth energy is channeled in the right direction. So what is that channeling? One of the example is conventions. Conventions is where this energy is brought together for a common goal, common purpose, from organizing, from programming to take away messages for life. This is what these conventions bring together, and that is what we experienced as we were planning for the National Convention in 2007.
The vision for these conventions was to allow youth to come together and form a bond with a Satpurush so they can stay connected to satsang, their cultural and spiritual roots.
What was different about National Convention 2007 was that for the first time, it wasn't just hundreds, but there was thousands of youth in 3 different conventions.
So for the convention that happened in 2007, NCO7 as we called it short, I was fortunate enough to be there for all 3 aspects of it. There were 3 separate conventions in sequence: the children's, the youth, and then the young adult aspects. My specific role in the conventions was more from an administrative aspect, particularly with registration, reporting, and data analytics. This was the largest convention we had held to date. So it was a host of new challenges for us that maybe we hadn't prepared for or even dealt with in prior experiences. you got to kind of go back to 2007, right? 2007 seems like it was only 15 years ago, but actually was a whole nother generation ago. Before the iPhone, really, before social media, before instant communication with everybody. It was difficult to communicate across North America with not only volunteers, but the planning team, and then also with all the delegates and their parents that might be attending these conventions. So communication was probably the largest challenge that we had in 2007.
Yes, sir. What's your name?
My name is Mukesh Swarup
Mukesh, where are you from?
from Washington, D.C.
What seva were you involved in the Shibir?
I was in charge of registration for the Shibir.
Another point to understand about our conventions is that they're run by volunteers. We're not paid staff. We're not professional event managers. So we are doing the planning for the conventions after work, at night, sometimes staying up till midnight, 1 in the morning in order to plan, and then we're getting up the next day to go to work. The other thing is that because we're not professionals, we'll make mistakes. Because then what we have to do is we have to learn from those mistakes and turn it around very quickly.
Of course, one of the challenges we had, particularly with the first two conventions, the children's and the youth conventions, is that these are minors for the most part, right? These are children who are in elementary school, middle school, potentially high school, and some that were in college, but for the most part, relatively young and potentially immature. So they may have never actually been to a convention of this sort before. So being able to bring them to the convention from their home in a safe manner, with chaperones, with what we would call parent coordinators, who may be young adults or parents themselves coming from those centers to the convention site themselves, monitoring them throughout the convention site, making sure they're not getting sick, making sure they're not feeling homesick, making sure they're enjoying the convention but in a healthy manner, and getting back home safely after the convention. All of that is a whole nother layer of administrative kind of burden, if you will, but that is very critical and crucial to ensuring the safety of the kids throughout the convention.
I think there are two things to understand about the differences between the conventions that we've put on versus an outside conference, professional conference that you would go to. The first is that when you go to a professional conference, you're just registering for the conference itself, but then you take care of all of your own logistics. For a convention that we've put on for youth, because we're dealing with youth, we have to provide an end-to-end system for them. So not only are we registering them, we're also, once they arrive at the airport, we are picking them up and bringing them to the convention site. And we're also taking them back to the airport at the end of the convention. We're providing 3 meals a day. So we're also collecting if they have any dietary restrictions or dietary sensitivities.
Think about how do we transport, 1,000+ kids in an elevator bank effectively within a given time frame and do that a couple of times a day. So thinking about how would we create the flow, what are the time blocks, we had to think of all those kinds of solutions to those kind of challenges, especially then you think about food, which is always a big part of any event, testing, doing food taste tests before the event took place and seeing, how is this received? Because again, the kids are leaving the comfort of their home, what they're used to, and going somewhere away, and we're trying to do something different to give them an experience. So those kinds of solutions were built in to think about how will we make this a well-rounded experience for everybody that gets to attend.
We started at least like a year out, trying to figure out the theme, the messages, and then we would set up conference calls each night after everyone was done with work. And then we would kind of go over the program, come up with ideas, and then we would also then have them reviewed by swamis who would kind of give us more guidance on the content itself.
So it was us doing a lot of the outlining of these programs, the scripting of these programs, working with the regions on calls, conference calls. We had a presence in all the regions. So, we had 2 folks in Chicago, a couple folks in Dallas and Houston. And so they had this ability to at least be on the ground and start working with all the actors and participants and dancers. And
I am very fortunate to be a part of the people that make up these conventions. So most attendees of these conferences and conventions were born in the US or born in North America. They were children of Indian immigrants, and they had a very unique experience growing up in America. And I, fortunately, me and the rest of the team, we also fit within that group. So we were able to identify and empathize with some of the experiences that these youths went through.
અમારી વાત તો કળિયુગની છે. હવે રહેવા દે ને, તને ક્યાં ખબર કળિયુગ કેવો હતો? મને ખબર છે, હા.
Throughout the program, a new backdrop was shown with each.
I think એટલે જ સ્વામી બાપા જ્યારે શાસ્ત્રીજી મહારાજની
We dove into the history of our satsang, of our spirituality, of Hinduism, and we looked for stories, for episodes, incidences that were inspiring and had meaningful values and meaningful insights. And we then translated those into moments that mattered, moments that resonated with our audience.
For many of the youth that will be attending this convention, it will be the first convention that they'd attend with Swami to that level. And so that was one thought that was playing on our minds as we were planning the program. And the second was that for many, this would have been a life-changing convention. And so it was a lot of pressure to make sure your messaging was on point.
Now, if you'll all very carefully follow me as we enter the most wonderful time of your life.
जाफर काबू अक्षर पुरुषोत्तमनी दशे दिशा मां जाफर काबू अक्षर पुरुषोत्तमनी दशे दिशा
ભાઈ તમને તો ખબર હોવી જોઈએ કે આ શાસ્ત્રીજી મહારાજ ના હોય આ 2007ની સાલમાં તે પણ અમેરિકામાં કેવી રીતે હોઈ શકે.
So we had sessions that focused on how do you do satsang at home? How do you practice your religion every day? How do you make sure you dedicate time for the benefit of your mandir? Why should you dedicate time for the benefit of your mandir? Because these are many questions that weigh heavily on the youth that were attending these conventions. They've gone through college, they may be working, work has a lot of pressure, and many times the weekends or evenings are times when you just want to relax.
Recognize that Pramukh Swami Maharaj was a key to helping youth stay connected to satsang. See, the Satpurush is the embodiment of our Siddhant, the tenets of our faith, and the Shastras, our scriptures. A connection to him fosters a connection to both the Siddhant and the Shastras. And this is most important for the younger age groups. Pramukh Swami Maharaj was a bridge, the bridge that inspired faith. He was the common thread. So all programming was designed around making that happen. And how that happened was customized. It was customized by age group. For the children, it was playing a game with Pramukh Swami Maharaj. Or for the young professionals, it was having him judge a competition or having a question and answer session with him.
આપને જે બ્રહ્માનંદનો અનુભવ થાય છે તેવો જ બ્રહ્માનંદનો
But one thing was sure.
અમને પણ થાય.
Each group left with memories that they will fondly remember. And with those memories, key messages that they'll always remember.
I think Swami coming to North America every 3 to 4 years was, in a way, almost deliberate, because he knew that at each chapter and each phase of our lives, we would be facing different challenges, new questions, questions about navigating our social dynamics, deciding what college to attend, what to study. He wanted to be part of that journey for us and making sure that we knew that he was there to guide us and support us.
Obviously, it's challenging to give 10 days of your schedule to the youth who, you're doing this under the idea that their potential is so great. But in the meantime, you had all these centers and all these regions with devotees who had needs, who had questions, requests, and Brongse Maharaj has always made himself available through letters, through phone calls, through one-on-ones, and that didn't stop. That just continued. Like we talked about, Atlanta Mandir Mahotsav was that year, Toronto Mandir Mahotsav was that year. These are very large international scale projects in addition to the 100 years centenary celebration of BAPS. And so nothing slowed down in exchange for the time he was able to give at this event. It was the same amount of engagement with everyone else, plus all this additional engagement with the youth in this focused time in Jacksonville.
Yeah.
It's not easy to bring yourself down to a whole new generation's level to connect with them in that way. And that's exactly what Swami did through these national conventions. He played with us, he listened to us, he spoke our language, he laughed with us.
Brongse Maharaj went and did a tour of the kitchen and the Aksharbit, where all the souvenirs were being sold, all the planning and programming offices. Sometimes you get 20 minutes notice that Brongse Maharaj is coming this way. But the energy and excitement that just injects into your day-to-day operations, it's huge. And that's really why you're there.
So I exited the ballroom, and as soon as I exited, there was some commotion, and I looked down the hall and I saw that Brongse Maharaj was arriving to the ballroom. I just kind of froze. I stood there. I had Brongse Maharaj darshan, and something within me just changed. Something just clicked. I wanted to learn more about him. I wanted to abide by some of the agnas or the vows that he has given us, and be able to kind of live my life in accordance to his principles. When I think about that smriti, when I think about that time in moment, it's something that always brings a smile to my face.
Yeah. Obviously, there's a language barrier in some instances where Brongse Maharaj is very comfortable speaking in Gujarati. He's very comfortable processing information in English, and sometimes, throwing in English words here or there. He'll always do attention checks every once in a while, do you understand, And part of that is he makes a lot of eye contact with people.
24 hour, પછી 7 અને 30 367 આ તમારું બધું જાય તમારે.
Especially for Bhattaks and for Bhatikas, he had the ability, this is just his personality. He was very simple and his words were simple, but he had the ability to take complex concepts and distill it down to that even a Bhattak and Bhatika could understand. And that's what we saw all throughout the convention.
સાપનું જ્ઞાન થયું છે કે નહીં? સાપ શું કહે? પછી સિંહ લાયન થાય, બરાબર? હવે એને લાયનની પાસે જવાનું મન થાય, જોઈએ ખરા દૂરથી પણ નજીક ન જવાય. કેમ થયું કે મારી ખાઈ જાય આપણને. સાપ છે કઈડે જ મરી જવાય, વીછી છે કઈડે જ મરી જવાય. ઝેર તમને આપે તો વોટ ઇઝ ઝેર? પોઈઝન તમને જો આપે તો ખલાસ થઈ જાય. પછી કોઈ કહે તારો મિત્ર હોય કે હું તને ₹1,00,000 આપું, $1,00,000 અહીં તો બોલવા દે, તો કહેવાનું $1,00,000 આપે તો તમે પીવો ખરા કે આટલું ઝેર પી જાય, પણ મરી ગયા પછી મારે ક્યાં ભોગવાના છે? એ કેટલું જ્ઞાન છે, અનુસંધાન છે કે નહીં? ઉંમરમાં તો અત્યારે ક્યાંય પાર્ટીઓ થતી હોય ને આનંદ માનતા હોય. એને અહીં આવું ને બેહવું ગમે નહીં. આ શું કંટાળાભર્યું વાત. આમાં આત્મબુદ્ધિ કરીને આમાં આ કરવું ને ફલાણું કરવું ઢીકનું કરવું એ કેમ રીતે? ત્યાં જાય તો બધી આત્મબુદ્ધિ બહુ થાય, બધા ભેગા થાય એટલે એ જ વિચારમાં હોય અને એ ત્યાં આવે જ નહીં. આ તો પણ આ તો 2500 બધા આવ્યા યુવકો.
He told us, make sure that when I speak, these kids understand. Make sure you give me feedback so that my language is not too Indian, not too deeply spiritual. Make sure that my messaging is clear, concise, and it sticks.
એ વારસો જો સાચવીશું તો હજુ આથી 100 વર્ષ છે ને બધા 100 વર્ષે આથી મોટો સત્સંગ થાય. હજુ 100 વર્ષનો ઠેલ મારવાનો ચાલુ. આપણે કંઈ સામાન્ય બેસી રહેવાનું નથી. એમને જે 100 વર્ષનો ઠેલ મારી દીધો છે અને અત્યારે આપણે બધા એ આનંદ પ્રમોદથી જ્ઞાન કરીએ છીએ તો આપણે એવા જીવન જીવીએ, એવી રીતનું આપણું કાર્ય થાય કે જેથી કરીને આવા પાછા હજારો લાખો થઈ જાય અને 100 વર્ષ સુધીનો ઠેલ વાગી જાય એવું કાર્ય કરવું. મળદા થઈને બેસી રહેવાનું નથી. મને કંઈ જ નહીં થાય. શું ના થાય? મળદું શું બોલે? શું ન થાય એ આપણી વસ્તુ છે કે આપણે કોના છે? પુત્રો શ્રીજીના છે, શાસ્ત્રી મહારાજ જોગીબાના પુત્રો. વારસો આપણો એ છે.
And we created some of these incidents, some of these moments, but it was the Satpurush that connected all of these incidences by connecting with the youth. Swami Shri went out of his way to connect to the youth, to help them understand the messages and help bring it all together.
મોટા પુરુષની અંદર છે, ભજનની અંદર છે, કથા વાર્તાની અંદર, કીર્તનની અંદર. તો આપણે અનુસંધાન હશે તો 24 કલાક 24 અવર આનંદ આનંદ આનંદ. ડુ યુ અન્ડરસ્ટેન્ડ? થેન્ક યુ. ચાલો.